Hello and welcome to Grumpy Old Crone with me, Annie. So I'm going to be talking about things that don't matter very much in the pagan and witchcraft communities for around the next half an hour, give or take. Now, I publish every week at the weekends, and if you like what I do here, then I'd be really grateful if you'd be up for liking, commenting and subscribing to the channel, because it really does help me to grow things a little bit. So thanks for that. Now, before I start in on this week's video, I just wanted to say that I'm hopefully going to be dropping a seasonal musical parody video or two over the Yule period as a little extra on top of the normal week videos that I try to do every weekend. They won't be on a regular schedule, and the YouTube algorithm seems to get very confused when non-music channels put out music content, and it doesn't then show them to very many people. So if you are interested in some funny Yule music, do drop a subscribe and check the channel throughout the December Yule run-up, as I suspect nobody but me and my children will have ever had them advertised to them at all. So they will be there. Right, anyway, enough of that. Shall we first go on to existing whilst witchy? So Samhain has been and gone, and as is traditional, it had a tiny little bit of snow and the weather has now gone cold and repulsively damp here in the UK. For all those people who think we moan too much about the weather here in the UK, I have two things to say. One, you're probably right, and two, wet winters are just bloody miserable though. Your bones get proper cold. I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan. But the best things about late autumn and winter is that I finally know how to dress. I'm rubbish at dressing in summer. Shorts and vest tops. That's it. That's the extent of my imagination when it comes to dressing this here body in the heat. I'd love to wear like big wafty floaty dresses, but the sleeves get wet in the washing up water, and if I sweat like a pig then it just sticks to me anyway, so you know, what's the point? Added to which, I am postmenopausal, so at any given moment in time, I'm about 50% likely to be breaking out in a mad hot flush anyway, rendering all the floaty fabrics smelly and unpleasant and sticky anyway. Yuck! I always thought that you only got hot flushes for like a year or two directly after menopause, and as soon as you were like properly crone-like cackling around a nice cauldron, it all eased off. Why did none of my friends tell me that it doesn't stop? I went through menopause like 8 years ago and I was still getting bloody hot flushes. I'm boiled all of the time. When you start in on menopause, I recommend, my recommendation is buy a really good rechargeable fan and keep it with you at all times, because the alternative is horrible and unpleasant. And that was a huge digression. Sorry, what was I talking about? Yes. I finally know how to dress. Winter, for me, is all about long skirts and layers, and all the layers. Fluffy leggings, knit leggings, long sleeve t-shirts, overdresses, jumpers, scarves, wrist warmers, and more. Oh, I love it so much. I'm also a fan of a good hat, and hats are the perfect thing to wear when it's a bit mizzly drizzly and you don't want to carry an umbrella. I recommend finding ones with inner brim lacings so that you can tighten them to your particular head shape. I also love those super cheap polyester knit pointy witch hat things, which can be seasonally decorated and always look good. They are the perfect mix, I think, of not too witchy as to cause people to question you relentlessly, but also witchy enough that you can, you know, pretend you're Sandra Bullock or Nicole Kidman leaping off a roof and floating gently to the ground in New England. So my witchy tips for looking suitably alternative in late autumn, winter are as follows. Tip 1, boots. I live and die in my boots. A solid pair of boots will carry you miles, protect your feet, and always look good with a skirt. I own very few pairs of shoes, but I do own a lot of boots. If, like me, you have fat little legs, I recommend buying boots that both lace up and zip up, because literally none of the zip-only boots fit my chunky little calves. That way you can zip them up, open the laces, put them on, then lace them up to fit your legs, and after that you only ever have to zip them up and down again. I mean, it's not the cleverest hack in the world ever, but it has enabled me to buy and wear some very nice boots indeed. And if you think I'm joking about having fat little legs, I'm not. I have teeny tiny little feet. I can buy shoes in the children's section if I choose. And the calves of a shot putter, well, lace up. Or ankle length and chunky with hobnails, like Nanny Og. Tip 2. Leggings that are fluffy on the inside. There are few things in life as comforting as fluffy leggings on a cold day. And because they are fluffy on the inside, they seal the warm air against your skin, so they are toasty too. And they look great with boots. See tip 1. Right. Tip 3. Straight hemlines are for the less daring among us. Get weird length and asymmetrical hemlines and then layer them, and nobody will ever look at your hips again. They'll be too busy trying to figure out what the hell's happening with all the fabric around your knees. I mean, honestly, top tier tip, I think. Tip 4. Unless you are built like Margaret, stick to solid colours for the majority of your layers. Otherwise, you may look like someone who is trying to avoid baggage fees on an EasyJet flight by simply wearing everything you own at the same time. Lots of layered, plain colours, like you're mysterious and enigmatic, yeah? Lots of layered patterns make you look like you got dressed in the dark. And take that from someone who often does get dressed in the dark. Whoops. Anyway, tip 5. Wrist warmers are everything. I left mine downstairs, I should have put them on. But if you can knit, make them yourself. They're super easy. I may be on a slight wrist warmer bender at the moment due to binging Outlander before that particular TV channel subscription expires. But they are fun, warm and a great look. Tip 6. A good, thick, long cardigan is a must. It makes everything look purposeful and keeps you super toasty. Well, that is as close to any sort of fashion advice that you're ever going to get to me. And given how I look on any particular day, you might as well choose to ignore the entire thing and look much better than me anyway. You know, and honestly, send me a picture so I can rejoice in your lovely wintry witchiness. I think that's probably quite enough so-called rubbish fashion advice from me. So let's head into the slightly longer than normal, but hopefully useful meat and 2 potatoes. Now, I often say that I'm always open to people arguing or disagreeing with me, and I'll change things if I find their argument compelling. Well, this argument is a direct, it's not really an argument, but this whole chunk is a direct result of that. One of you lovely cronies left me a comment last week saying that I maybe did a little too much complaining and not quite enough teaching. And I did obviously feel a bit put out about this, but then I sat with it for a while and I realised actually, yes, they had 100% a valid point. I've done a couple of small teaching videos, and often the existing Whilst Witchy or meat and 2 potato sections of my main videos will have teaching and talking points. But it's been a while since I've done anything directly instructional, so maybe it's time to do that. Thank you, commenter, for your very polite but very truthful comment. I wish I had written down your name, but like an idiot, I scrolled past feeling a bit grumpy about it. And by the time I realised that you were, in fact, 100% right, everything had scrolled up and got lost. So I'm sorry, but yes, you were very valid. So what I wanted to talk about today is a practical approach to something that I spoke about a couple of times earlier this year, which is loving the land that you live on. Now, I am somebody who believes that wherever you live right now and whatever route you got there, it's absolutely vital to love the land and the landscape that's beneath your feet right now. Now, I'm aware that many of you watching this live in the US, and because it's mostly lovely people who watch this channel, many viewers will be very sharply aware of the fact that they live on what they consider to be stolen land, and they feel bad about cultivating a relationship there. Now, I can't wade into that argument because I am the most supremely unqualified person to even have that much of an opinion. You know, I'm white, I'm English, and I know almost no American history, so we're going to skirt this subject. Now, I'm very open to people with a working knowledge of colonisation and the effect on Indigenous people setting up shop in the comments section. However, please treat them with respect and humility should they choose to share anything there. Please and thank you. Now, what I want to talk about today is how to build a relationship with the land that you live on today, because this stuff is fundamental, I feel, to witchcraft and paganism. The land is everything, and we are part, excuse me, of that everything. And if we want to tap into the power that flows through everything, then we need to be rooted in our place. So how can you build a practice, a relationship and love in the place that you are? Now, some people are lucky enough to live somewhere they really enjoy being, and connecting with what is around them is easy for them. And for those people, I imagine a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be like really old hat, but let's wade in anyway. So first and foremost, we're going to look at the issue of spirits. Okay, so spirit dwellers in various landscapes, it's a huge subject, and not one that I have enough time within the scope of just one video to address. So I'm going to look at the two most obvious types of land spirit. So number one is the house spirit. Now, I've spoken a lot about house spirits in the past, mainly because I work with mine and I really love that, and I really enjoy that as part of my practice. I've always worked with a house spirit centred in the hearth of my home, because I have almost always lived in old housing stock in the UK, and I've always had working fireplaces. Now, I take ashes from one fire to another to seek my house spirit and to summon him, we call him grandfather, into my new house as one of the first acts of residence when I move. Put the kettle on, order a delivery pizza, conjure the bubach. That's me in every new house, every single time. Once you've conjured him, make little offerings, incense, sweets, alcohol, and let him know how glad you are to be sharing a house with such a fine fellow as he. Never, ever thank him. Now, thanks, if you're wondering why, there is a good reason why we never ever thank the Fae, no matter what they do for us. And that is because thanking engenders a feeling of indebtedness, which you do not want to have to deal with the fair folk. Okay, spirit number two, the genius loci. Now, that is the spirit of the place, kind of like the overarching place that you live. Now, different cities have different feelings to them. You know, any city dweller will tell you that. If you live in a small town or a village, it can be even more obvious. For many years, I lived in a tiny little village of about 200 people, all of whom knew each other. The village graveyard featured the same surnames over 2 or 3 centuries or more. It was a very distinct feeling of belonging, and it took a while to kick in, but when it did, I could have told you blindfolded when we entered that village. You can't conjure the genus loci in the same way that you do a bubach or a house spirit. These spirits are huge and overarching. You need to key into them. A spirit like that of an old city, say London, feels vast and ancient. Visit places around your city, learn about the history, find who owned your home before you, find about the men and the women who shaped that place throughout history. And every time you find something interesting, think home. You want to belong to the genus loci, not the other way around. The genus loci cannot be possessed or compelled, but it can be worshipped and propitiated. Figure out where the centre of your conurbation or countryside lot is and visit it with reference. You may often find that it's tied up with water sources. I found out recently that the park local to me has a very old holy well in it. It's now bricked up and has an iron gate on it, but it's there. And that's the heart of this district for me, although the heart of the whole city is very obviously somewhere else. So just find the space that works for you. Right, moving on. Another huge subject, and not completely distinct from the spirits, gods. Okay, so as pagans, we love a good bit of polytheism. Some of us collect gods like Pokemon, while others dedicate themselves to just one or two. And I'm not here to make any judgments about that. And honestly, I don't think that your choice of God has to have a lot of influence over your feelings towards the land that you live on, because that's where we're coming from again, in case you've forgotten. So unless you want it to, obviously. If there is a God with a particular following or tradition that's local to where you live, then it's worth listening to your heart and doing some research and seeing if you feel a call. But I will say that I personally don't think it should work in the other direction. Feeling a call from a deity who has a land tie does not automatically give you a claim to the land or linked magical tradition. This video is not about claiming a tie to a land that you don't live on, so feel free to explore gods that are linked to your land, but if a tie to a place is what you are building, keep it localised. But also bear in mind that a deity may have no particular allegiance to a particular place or something to be worshipped in slightly different ways in different places and under different names. You may well be able to find relevant links if you feel that you need them, but equally, a deity is much larger than a small piece of ground, and historically speaking, widening out worship from a smaller place of origin can only increase a god's influence and win favour for the follower. So, maybe that's a good thing. After all, the Christian God is, at the end of the day, just this tiny little desert deity who really got lucky. There's no reason why we couldn't do the same for whatever god we wish to venerate. Right. This next one is a huge one. Fall in love with the land that you live on. Love the big things. Wherever you are, there is something to love. The place that sustains you is beautiful, and you can find something of joy within it. I live within easy reach of the fens in England. Before the 17th century, the fens were just marshes, wet and wild and home to nobody but strange, lonely people. And when they were drained, they became flat and solid and wild and home to different strange and lonely people. They are notorious for being flat and featureless, crisscrossed with drainage canals and channels. And at night, I still feel they're an uncomfortable place to be. I was so caught up in what other people thought of the fens that I allowed it to colour how I felt myself, until I read this quote from Harry Godwin's Fenland. Any fool can appreciate mountain scenery, but it takes a man of discernment to appreciate the fens. I loved that quote, and it turned around how I felt about the fens. Even in the blankest, bleakest landscape, there is something of beauty, and you just have to learn how to appreciate it. For me, the bleak landscapes are about the balance between the land and the sky, about how the eye is drawn inexorably towards the horizon. It's beautiful and harsh and unforgiving. It's very calm on the eye, and the loneliness of it makes my heart sing. Now, it isn't my land, but now I can see the beauty of it easily enough. If you live close to big landscapes, you know what I mean, mountains, forests, rivers and so forth, take the time to see what is so easy to love right in front of you. What is the land underneath you? What is that land? For me, it's limestone. I live on a limestone escarpment and have done for a quarter of a century. There's something about spending time on this kind of ground that speaks to me. When I perform a grounding ritual, I can feel my roots sinking into the limestone, following the paths of the rain through the rock. It's like I can breathe properly. I found it easy to love the limestone and the glacial erosion that makes the gentle slopes and valleys of my home. Spend some time sitting on the ground in a quiet place, not on concrete, not on a rug, not on plastic, but on the actual ground. We're only natural fibres so that nothing man-made comes between you and the land that you are learning to love. Close your eyes. Ground yourself. Send your roots deep into the earth. Leave your roots in place and open your eyes. See beauty around you. This is your home. This is your land. Love it. Love the mountains, the hills, the slopes or the plains. Love the rivers, the streams or the lakes. If you can't see them, it doesn't matter, because all earth is one. And where you touch the ground and the ground touches landmarks doesn't matter. It's all one, isn't it? Okay. Next, love the little things as well as the big things. Now, I garden. It helps to connect me to the land that I live on so much. Cup of tea, excuse me. So yeah, I garden. But you don't have to plant something and nurture it to love it. Look at the little plants pushing up between paving stones and admire their strength and indomitable nature. Look at the trees in the park, cycling through the wheel of the year and growing a little every year. A perfect picture of patience and grace in plant form. Watch how the rain falls on the ground and then drains away. If you can plant something, then do it. Love the green fly and the birds and the spiders and the squirrels. Love it all. Every little tiny thing is a tiny miracle put on this good green earth to be loved and admired. Folk stories and folk songs, which seems like an odd little digression, but honestly it's not. It's right at the heart of everything. So go to a library, ask about local folklore sections, look up stories that are grounded in the land that you live in, ghost stories and urban legends, not just creation stories from indigenous peoples. The land is older and has a history with all of the people who've lived on it at all periods. Ghosts and spirits from all kinds of communities will be part of the land upon which they took root. A hitchhiking ghost from the 1950s has a part to play in the history of the space you're living on, as do stories of cryptids, the Jersey Devil, the Mothman, Bigfoot. They're all layers of story and myth as well. Pay attention to what happened on your land and wind it into your practice like a long thread on a spool. If the land that you live on was stolen from Indigenous peoples, learn from them and about them and take agency for whatever reparations you can make. Now, I'm not talking about money, I'm talking respect and understanding, making room at any table that you have influence in. Now, as I've said before, and I'll say again, I'm no expert here. The colonisation of my country by invaders happened a very, very long time ago, more than a millennium. It's not something that continues to have an effect on the people who live here now. So I don't pretend to know the first thing about it, and please do not assume that I do. So moving on to something that I do know about, I want to make the point that story and song are very closely allied. I'm currently reading the book Secret Commonwealth by Richard Kirk over on my Patreon, and in the introduction to it I was really struck by the commonalities between the story of the mysterious death of the author Robert Kirk and the ballad Tam Lin. Now, many years ago, back when I still lived in the southeast of England, I worked in a really extremely prominent folk music library in London doing research, and I can tell you that history echoes through folk music like a shout in a cathedral. If you're looking for stories to connect you to the land, look for song too. If you don't enjoy sung folk music, that's fine, but just look for the lyrics. Songs can often be the last repositories of stories that are on the verge of dying out. Look for old published songbooks and cheaply printed song sheets, often called broadsheets. In places where colonisers have attempted to layer their own culture over the top of the existing one, sometimes song is the last refuge of tradition. You can see this really clearly in Eastern Europe, in places that have been invaded, reclaimed and reinvaded time and time again by Russia in all of her different guises. The invaders attempt to plaster over the old stories, and they end up in songs sung in 1,000 different bedrooms to 1,000 different children and being carried through like torches of history. So don't be afraid to look there. And most importantly, don't expect the looking to be easy. Don't spend 5 minutes on Google and give up if you can't find something entitled The History of That Exact Place That You Live In, Story and Song in 750 words. This isn't about finding one piece of information and declaring it a job well done. It's an ongoing journey that will last the rest of your life. Every fragment of information is a brick in the structure of your practice and connection to you on your land. Super important, spend time outside. Now, sitting here in my artificially lit, centrally heated house in the middle of a nice city with restaurants and libraries and shops and theatres to visit, I am aware that this can be hard for everyone, myself included, but go outside, go walking, visit parks, swim in the natural water, maybe not this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, because I'm not Wim Hof and I only venture into water in the dark months if it's hot, has bubbles in, is in the comfort of my own bathroom. But if you have woods nearby, go into them. Spend time where there are fewer people and more plants, whatever those spaces might look like near you. If you're going to love the land that you live on, you have to build a mutual relationship with it in exactly the same way that you would with a friend or a spouse. Learn where the water flows after it rains, I think I've said that, or which trees flower first in spring. Learn where the wind blows from and when it's coldest or hottest. Just pay attention to your land and what's around you. Remember that you are in service to the land, not the other way around. Try and think of the things that you can do for the land that surrounds you. Pick up litter. Always a great thing to do. Serves both the land and the people around you. Maybe experiment with a little bit of guerrilla tree planting, and by that I don't mean there's a kind of tree called the gorilla tree. I mean grow saplings from seed and then go and plant them in public places without permission. If you plant a few fruit trees, you can feed wildlife that way too, maybe even a few humans. Honestly, planting trees is one of those actions you can take which is nothing except positive. If you're angry and feeling a bit destructive, how about pulling up some invasive species? Near me, it's bloody Himalayan balsam, which is just everywhere. And it crowds out native species. So go vent your anger on some of that, or some kudzu perhaps. Make sure that you're pulling up the right stuff. A lot of places have group work days where you can go to learn to identify the bad guy plants in your area, know what to pull up and what to nurture for most biodiversity. So encourage wildlife, feed birds, find what appropriate food is needed by the wildlife in your area and provide it. No, not rats though, they don't need any help at all, they're doing just fine and dandy on their own, or bears. I was thinking more hedgehogs and foxes personally. You can also be of huge service to your land by campaigning on behalf of it. Speak out in defence of the land. Don't let it be sacrificed to developers and builders. We need green space much more than we need new houses on protected land these days. Observe the cycle of the year. I've said many times that I'm no longer a practising Wiccan, but there are certain central tenets of the Wiccan faith which I have chosen to retain in my practice. And one of those is the Wheel of the Year. I think it is an excellent tool for anyone looking to sink themselves deeper into a nature-driven practice. By simply observing the year turning around us, we are automatically more present in the natural aspects of our lives. You don't have to celebrate all the Sabbats, but I do actually recommend at least just marking them, because it is an excellent way to be aware of our place within that cycle. When the year is darkest, coldest and most depressing, we get Imbolc with little snowdrops, the most cheerful and heartening flower of the whole year, in my opinion, just because we need that reminder that warmer days are coming. And right now, as we sink into the soft oblivion of Yule and winter, a little fire and festivity does a lot to keep us cheery through the longest night too. Now, I often have like a little nature display on my living room coffee table. I put leaves, acorns, flowers, etc. there, and I pick them up after a walk outdoors. And making a deliberate little display often cheers me up right there and then. And in the days that follow, I remember the day that I went and collected some lovely things, and everything seems okay again, even when, it's not really. So it doesn't have to be huge bonfires and lightly toasting Scottish policemen all the time, but just paying gentle attention and being grateful that the world continues to turn without our intervention is a very good thing, I think. So those are my suggestions anyway for good practical ways to learn to love the land that you are on. Now, I'm sorry I've banged on so much about that, but I really wanted to take the time to give you some practical tips. So let's move on to the positive bit! Here comes the positive bit! Right, it's nearly December. Oh my God. In fact, by the time that some people are watching this video, it will definitely be December, which means that no matter how much I want to cry about it, it's probably past time to take down my Halloween and Samhain decorations. I'm like one of those people who can't bear to take down their Christmas decorations until February, only I'm like that with the autumnal ones. I feel a little bit cheated by nature this year, actually, because just as the leaves turned that perfect shade of yellow and orange, we had a couple of really big storms and all the leaves got instantly stripped off of the bushes and trees. But what this does mean that it's easier to accept that the year is turning. Temperatures are varying wildly, going between cold enough for a little snow flurry to where things are today, which is almost warm enough to go out without a jacket. There's still a relative abundance of food for wildlife as nuts are falling from trees, small prey insects are not hibernating quite yet, or they're getting so sleepy and slow that they're really easy to catch, and plants have not entirely died back yet. And the fact that wildlife is still up and about and being a wonderful thing brings me to today's truly, truly positive bit. In fact, this is so positive that when I first saw my friend Alice share it, I had a little cry of joy because it's so beautiful. So I'm going to show you a video shared by my local council captured from CCTV cameras. Is it local louts drinking too much and throwing up? No, it is not. Is it people harassing other people because of the colour of their skin? No, I'm profoundly relieved to say it is not. It is, in fact, a fox and an otter running all over the city centre less than a mile from my house in the middle of the night, where there are absolutely no humans about and these animals aren't attacking each other, but they're just exploring and being curious. Oh, it's just gorgeous. So here you go. Now, lots of people on the internet have attempted to debunk this, saying that the fox was hunting the otter for food. Oh, for fuck's sake, people, just rewind and watch it again. There's no hunting or stalking body language there. Also, this is an urban fox living in a city. Why on earth would it need to hunt a large, dangerous fellow predator like an otter? It can pull a half-eaten pizza out of a bin at any point along that street, I promise you. And that's what urban foxes do, and do very successfully. The otter, however, is having a high old time exploring and not appearing to be particularly worried about the fox at all. I know exactly the path they took, and if the otter was concerned at any point, it could have got back into the river anywhere during that. Now, an otter can sever a human finger with a single bite. Ask Terry Nutkin. That statement will only make sense if you're over 50 and live in the UK. Sorry, otherwise you can probably Google it. But otters can attack and kill dogs. But this one shows no sign of defensive behaviour or jumping back into the water to escape. It's just curious. So there you go. In the middle of a city, a fox and an otter having a run around in an almost playful interaction. Isn't that just gloriously positive? It's so beautiful, and it made me really happy, and I hope it makes you really happy too. And it informs today's blessing as well. So, as you walk through your week, bowed but unbeaten under the burdens of your life, may you remember to see joy in what surrounds you. May you experience the sleek power and playfulness of the otter and the clever adaptability of the fox. And more than anything, may you discover a rich vein of playful joy somewhere in the week to come. Blessed be, my beloved cronies.